Good morning, Dragon Con! That's it. More time. Day one. There we go. Welcome to Walking Dead Expanded Universe. I'm your moderator, Michael Frost. These are my fellow panelists who are going to introduce themselves. And we're going to discuss the Walking Dead Expanded Universe, how things link together, what your favorites are, what their favorites are, and a whole lot of information I probably don't know myself.
All right, so I'm Doug Burbey. So really for DragonCon here, I write post-demon apocalyptic military urban fantasy. So focusing on that, my day job is I'm a retired Army guy, and now I work for the government doing advanced military technology development. Whole different set of panels, talk about that later. Really the reason they got me here is because I got a crowbar and an AR-15 and a biological tattoo, so they said you must be a Walking Dead guy. So absolutely I am.
Hi, my name is Hanako M. I'm the creator and host of the Phantom Hybrid podcast, and the Walking Dead Expanded Universe is one of our favorite things to talk about.
Hey, I'm Tara. You can find me online pretty much everywhere at The Geek Saga. I do have a couple different podcasts, the main one being The Geek Saga podcast. I do also have a series with a website/YouTube channel called The Geekiary. I am not allowed to say what that series is called on this panel because it's too early in the day, but it's called starts with a B, ends with ing, dead.
Well, good morning. I think a good place to start is, since the original series, going back now to 2010, if I remember right, so we're about coming up on 14 years into this universe, is from the original series, where do you think this expanded universe is actually going to go to? I think it's a good place to start here. We now have covered other groups. We've covered just lost my train of thought. The group of the choppers.
The CRM.
CRM.
Thank you, the CRM. We've covered West Coast, East Coast, South, Europe, New York. So where do you think we're going to go from here at this point?
I'll be honest, sometimes I don't even think they know.
I didn't want to go there.
I mean, for real, I think like I keep waiting for the universe to kind of end, but they keep coming up with these, spin-off, side quests. Yeah, exactly. Good. That's good. That's great. I love it. They keep coming up with these side quests, and I'm not saying like I still I've enjoyed certain of the like more recent spin-offs. I really like the Rick and Michelle one, for instance. But I feel like they put out a lot of seeds, and they're just kind of trying to see which ones stick. And I could be wrong. Maybe there is somebody in the production team who has like some grand massive plan. But to me, it kind of seems like they don't.
I just really want them to get to a point where everybody reunites. All the people who are on the different spinoffs, especially with the fact that we have Rick and Michonne back now, technically. Like I know that they've extended Daryl Dixon through a third season, and I've heard rumors that there's going to be a fourth. Rick is home, Michonne is home. I need Daryl to go home. So, but beyond that, I don't know. I mean, with it being a zombie apocalypse, there are a lot of stories that they could tell because, up until Daryl went to France, the rest of the world was largely untouched in this universe, and we didn't know what was going on. So I like the fact that they're expanding and showing us what's happening in other parts, but if it's not going to all eventually come together, then it's kind of like, I feel like you're milking it, which if the story is good, I don't have a problem with it. I'm loving the Daryl Dixon show. Obviously, I love the Rick and Michonne show, but like Dead City is kind of in between for me. So
You're a lot nicer about Dead City than the Dead City, whatever they're calling it.
So with that, the one thing I did like about Dead City is the disaster porn setting environment. I thought that was cool, and where they go in other settings. The Europe thing's interesting inside there. I like the medieval aspect, especially in season 1, showing the castles and stuff. And I'm like, perfect for the apocalypse. The I don't know if the show we're talking about bringing them together or keeping it fresh with different environments. We haven't had things like what's going on like Key West. That could be an interesting type of season inside of there where survivors are boat based or something like that. Or New Orleans, what happened in New Orleans? The levees break, flooded that out. Just different environmental aspects and to go in there. But it can't be Daryl like on a frequent flyer thing flopping around, the countries inside of there and some of the other characters themselves from the other seasons back around. But you'll never see Disney World in the zombie apocalypse. You probably can't afford to do that. But I would love to see Disney World and survivors that wear Mickey Mouse costumes running around killing
Can you
people.
imagine
That'd be
the
awesome.
zombie apocalypse in the Princess Castle?
There's actually
somebody would do it.
There's a book that is I'm blanking on what it's called, but I'll try to look it up at the end of the panel. But there's a book that somebody wrote, I want to say in like 2016 or so it came out, that is, they couldn't use the name Disney World obviously, but it is like very clearly set with people living in an Orlando-based theme park with castles.
Could you imagine every zombie is walking around in like a Hawaiian shirt, cargo shorts, and Crocs? Every zombie is walking around. Like
I love the idea of New Orleans, but I'll be honest, like because I have such a deep attachment to that city, I would be very concerned that they would not do justice in a Walking Dead show because I think sometimes they do things really well and sometimes they're really bad.
The what?
Oh, she said the fine print.
Yeah, I don't. There might be more than one, honestly. I'm just thinking about this one in particular because I met the author at an event in a Comic-Con that year that it came out. So that's why that one's like in my head. But I'll look it up. Yeah, I think so too.
It would be cool.
Yes, just maybe not with the Walking Dead. I don't know. Some of the Walking Dead showrunners, you guys are really, really good, and some of them are really not, or have gotten like were good in the beginning but aren't so great anymore. So I don't know. Like I said, I really like the Rick and Michonne show, but like comparing that to Dead City, whatever they're calling it, is like it's not even apples to oranges. It's like apples to raisins or something.
You're rotting fruit somewhere, but okay.
Yeah.
And as a New Yorker, I have a different take on the show. I was so excited because in this genre, nobody ever touches New York. I mean, we've gotten earthquakes, tidal waves. We've been nuked a couple of times.
Aliens.
No one ever wants to give it aliens.
Tons of aliens.
The whole city froze in that one movie.
Right, yeah, you're afraid it's
Day
over.
before, after
But like the zombies are afraid of us, and we're not that scared. Okay, maybe the A train is, but other than the A train, we're not that scary. And so they actually brought, great, we're gonna get the zombies, and I'm just looking at going, where did Gimple find his soundstage and set design? Because I don't know what part of the city this is supposed to be, but it's not one part I've ever been in.
I don't know. New York is looking suspiciously like Atlanta these days.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go there, but I swear I heard some Georgian accents.
But they filmed Dead City in New Jersey. They didn't film here.
Well, Camden's pretty much dead anyway.
I'm going to whip out some Patterson jokes, so we're going to move on from
Yeah.
that.
I lived in Monmouth County for a while. So.
You understand, okay. But like you brought some very good points up, is there's so many places that Gimple could be going with this. And I agree with you. It feels very much like he's sitting in an office somewhere, flinging darts at a board, and he's going, hey, look, 2 darts at that spot. Let's try that. You look back, The Rick and Michonne was supposed to be, 6 episodes and done. It actually was supposed to be a movie, technically.
Yeah.
3 movies.
Technically, 3 movies.
You go back, it's supposed to be 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I thought had the most promise was The World Beyond, because we got to see something outside of the core group. I like the idea of, hey, let's just go see what's happening out in the world. Because other than CRM and the Commonwealth going further back, or even the governor to go far enough back, it always, to me, was lacking in the universe. This happened over 65 days, if you look at the timeline for the entire first season. This whole thing went from 0 to 60 in 65 days. I get society collapsed, but a whole lot of other things globally had to have happened We never got to see it. We were promised that in Fear. Fear was supposed to show me the beginning, and all of a sudden in the middle of the, third episode, never mind, let's just fast forward. Yeah, all of a sudden it's happening. What?
Oh, don't even get me started on Phil.
Yeah, I agreed there. So what I would love to see, simple things. There are scores of nuclear power plants in this country alone. That anybody knows about nuclear power knows if we all turn to zombies within about 10 to 30 days, every one of them has good old-fashioned China syndrome. They melt down because those cooling towers, the fuel rods have to go, they call scramming. The whole bunch of things you have to do to keep the plant from basically becoming Fukushima. And if you remember what happened in Japan with Fukushima, picture 60 of those in this country. There's a whole lot of swaths of this nation that have no zombies and no humans. It's done. And will be for a couple thousand years. Or what about our Navy? So if it all happened in Los Angeles, where they claim it all started, or it happened at Pasteur, some of the subtext from Daryl Dixon, wouldn't there have been cruise ships out? Remember COVID? All these cruise ships sailing around. Where are all these people? Are there ships full of zombies floating around out there someplace?
Well, I know that they have touched a little bit on some of those things. Like, I'm not sure if anyone watched
The short.
yes.
The webisode, the Flight
Yes.
6, whatever.
and the one Dead in the Water.
Yep.
That's
Oh,
the
I
one.
didn't see that one.
Okay, so Dead in the Water was like a 6-part miniseries,
Okay.
and it talked. It basically gave us the background story of Riley, who was Teddy's right-hand person, and kind of the start of what it was like being on the Navy sub when all of this went down. And one of the places that they were told to nuke in the beginning was Chicago.
Like the
It was-
something protocol.
It was supposed to be like ground zero.
Right.
Yeah, so I know that they've touched on some of those things, and then you see a little bit of like the cruise ship type stuff in the Tales of the Walking Dead. When we get Alpha's backstory, they're on a little ship there, and then you see the remnants of an old cruise ship on the Rick and Michonne show. So they kind of tease those little things, but there are other certain things that I personally would like to know, like, here we are in 2024. The timeline of The Walking Dead is about right around 20 years now.
Yeah.
We still don't know how this thing started. Like, how is it that everyone was living a perfectly normal life and then all of a sudden the world goes to crap?
And how the heck does the virus spread? Like, so
Exactly.
I get that once, that everybody has it, so if you die, you become a walker.
Right.
But like, what about people who were like in a sub underwater
Right.
and they don't come up for like 30 days after it starts? How did they possibly how is it spread to them at this point?
So that's my
There's got to be
question.
some sort of immunity somewhere, somehow. And I know they touched on that with, or they tried to touch on that in Fear the Walking Dead, the immunity thing. They were trying to see if like kids born after the fact were immune or whatever. And it turns out they weren't, which I think that goes against what's in the comics. I thought in the comics, anybody born after the fact, like Judith would be immune if she was still alive in the comics. But I could be wrong about that because I never finished the comics after Andrea. I'm going off of what some other people have told me. But yeah, so they touched on these things, but like you said, why do we still not know?
Like, are there zombies in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Because you've got all these different islands. Like, did it hit all of them? Are there zombies in Japan? Are there zombies in the Caribbean? Like, I wanna know.
This is exactly what I want to know. Is that you're touching the same thing? Is even more remote than that. What about the research stations on Antarctica? They stay there for 6 months, like you said, and it's cold. And we all know about viruses. A lot of viruses can't handle cold. So it does handle the Arctic and Antarctic. All these ships, all the islands, and even things like, and I think the CRM is probably the closest example. There's been a lot of, if you read all the subtext, it's the remnants of the U.S. government to a large extent, which has always been another one myself. We know in real life, in our world, in theory, our government has what they call COG, or continuity of government, that can be implemented in as little as 18 minutes in the case of nuclear attack. So there's places that important people go, or they think they're important. I'm not going to go there. Places where government officials go There's bunkers, there's the command and control centers. If those can be lit in 18 minutes, how over 65 days did the entire government not at least have something functioning that we don't see? The CRM seems more to me to be some rogue forces that survives. Hey, look, I have all the weapons. Let's just band together, kind of like the Monroe Republic in Revolution. But that's really, I think, what I want to see. I want to see where's everybody else? What is going on? And is this world, like I think you said, where is it going to end? At some point, one of two things has to happen. Zombies are going to take the rest of us out, or we're going to rebuild civilization. There's really only two choices here.
I think with that is you got to look at where the showrunners are going and what they want to focus on. So you have season 1, series 1, first group. You've got Rick and Michonne, you've got Daryl, some of the main characters, and they tie inside of there. But they jumped so far ahead in the timelines. So now that it's kind of in a kit bag where if you want to find this other stuff, you have to do something like Fear of the Dead. Now you've got to go. You need to test the water with a whole new group. You got to start it over, different environment. You got to reset. But people like the core characters. But when you jumped everything like 20 years forward, that makes it really hard from from writing stories. You can't. Now, am I breaking my own canon by doing things? So now you got to be really careful what you're doing with. Now you got the CRM, but you had the Commonwealth. So it's the story about, do you want to focus on environment or you want to focus on characters? Because right now I think you're very character focused, but now you have to tie something together. And the farther away like Daryl goes, how does he get back to Rick and Michonne? It's an apocalypse. I mean, it's, even in like the 1700s, it would take like 4 months to get from one city to another city. Daryl come back from, so we're going to jump another 3 years by the time he figures out a way to get back. That's even possible. So for that, and I always thought the show was character based inside of there. Like who's everybody's favorite bad guy? Negan, right?
Negan.
Everybody's got a favorite bad guy. Who's your favorite hero? Michonne and Daryl. Those are the other two. Most people don't know the rest.
Carol.
There we go. You got Carol. Hey, look at the flowers.
I don't know though. Carol has gotten really dark at times, which is why I would not call her my favorite hero. Is she an awesome character? Absolutely. But I think if we're gonna go like hero, it's Michonne. Carol has been dark. I love that darkness.
Yeah, I love her. For me, I look at Rick. Rick's Rick's just a mediocre villain in my book. Mostly because Rick is just like somebody you hang around with to die. But everyone loves Negan. Everybody likes the bad guys. I love that about the apocalypse stuff. The CRM pieces, that's a maturation of the universe, I think, because eventually, we start to rebuild. I see that. So villains, not villains, but the guys like Negan, the guys like the governor, anybody in there, those are the cool characters inside of there. But when you jump back again for this new environment, you got to start all over.
Although they really could have shortened the Negan storyline in the main show by at least half a season, if you ask me.
And expanded some of the others. Some of them got shortchanged. Like what's the way station? Animals. Terminus.
Yes.
Like, I love that storyline.
Yes.
I would have loved way more backstory.
And they spent so much time building it
They
up.
did. Great
And then
setting,
one
great environment. Yeah, Rick and his malcontents just come in and like slaughter people, and they're the good guys.
Well, there's a theme going. I think you just probably 5 different seasons.
How many Reconstruction civilizations did Rick kill? 1, 2, 3, 4. And he just walks around and kills everybody, just trying to get by, We're just sitting there clocking in for work. Rick and his bunch of malcontents come in and slaughter
That's actually
everybody.
a really good idea for a panel. Like Rick as the villain. Discuss.
Rick versus zombies. Who did more damage to society?
That's true.
I'm going to take a moment to disagree with you on Carol, though, because yes, she gets very dark, and the reason Carol's my favorite hero, and I am going to call her a hero, Carol gets things done. Carol will do the things that nobody wants them. Remember, Look at the flowers, Lizzie.
Yeah.
Look at the flowers, Lizzie. Any of us really think we could walk up behind a 10-year-old and just put her down because, well, it has to get done? So, then you know what? Things need to be done.
And she does it. So with Carol, like everybody in the apocalypse got PTSD, right? I mean, that's kind of like a sad thing. She came into the apocalypse with PTSD, with spousal abuse and everything. So she was in a she found her strength in the apocalypse, and she wanted to help other people survive. She wasn't touchy-feely about it, but I always thought she did care about the group, except towards the end where it's like, I'm going to live in my house, I'm just going to kill anybody who knocks on my door sort of thing. But she was damaged before everyone else became damaged. So it kind of compounded. So I actually really liked her story because it was like you saw her break at the beginning, prepare herself, the apocalypse broke her, and then she found her place from there. So like for her character, and you're right, she's tough, could be a villain.
I would not call her a villain by any means. No,
but
I just think that she's not the sort of golden hero that she's not the golden hero that like they make Michonne.
Yeah, like Michonne and Daryl are heart, right? They're both heart characters. You know, they're both, you know, Michonne, even from her early, everything she did was out of some form of love for somebody. And Daryl loved them all. He wanted to take care of everybody, and he knew he could, but then he was also raised as a lone wolf. So he had a lot of conflict. That was really nice.
I see a lot of heart in Carol as well. And again, I don't think I really use like heroes and villains when talking about these characters because you're in a zombie apocalypse. Even the best of people, you're going to have to do something that's going to compromise your morals in order to survive in this world. And the thing with Carol, I think that I didn't appreciate in the beginning and that I appreciate now, like when she would have her moments of crisis and she would, you know, take off from the group and I can't do this. And she was so quote unquote whiny. She got on my nerves so much then because I was like, your people need you. Why are you acting like this? And then going back and just kind of reevaluating, I realized she was really fighting to hold on to what humanity she had because Carol is one of those people, I think, if she has to go cold turkey and just do some damage, she would be the first one to do it. Like, I think she would probably surpass Rick if she had to.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the thing with her is that she is fighting to hold on to that humanity so that she doesn't have to do those types of things. And then you have people like the saviors who come and smack your kid around and steal your wedding ring. And then she's like, okay, I just got to burn all y'all now. But
things need to get done.
She gets things done. But I think the great thing about her character is that she does still have a conscience about it. She does still feel a lot of remorse about it. And for a lot of people, I think you would think that type of, you know, holding on to your humanity would allow you to or cause you to die quicker in this world. And I think it's one of the reasons why she has survived so long.
I will say, like, and you said that you got really frustrated with her when she would kind of like wander off.
Oh my
God. The one time that this happened, it was during the Negan storyline when she like went and lived in that little house.
Yes.
I blame that entirely on Morgan. Morgan is the show ruiner. Every show he wanders back into in this universe, he makes it worse. So I've always blamed that Carol disappearing into her little like farmhouse somewhere off. And I mean, it was like in between all the different settlements that were fighting Negan at that point. But like that's entirely Morgan's fault.
I also wonder a lot of how much written in, like, all right, the actors, actresses, and all that. Like, were they working on other shows? It's like, we got to write you into little bit things. We got to do your whole season in like 4 days inside of this house, sort of thing. So, I always wonder that when people just like strangely get put aside and then come back later. I'm like, whoop.
Oh, I think it was for sure a choice they made, and like I'm being lighthearted about the Morgan thing, but I mentioned like, oh, I should not get into The Walking Dead. Fear the Walking Dead, the first season wasn't great, but it got really good in the second, and I think most, if not all, of the third season. And then it was like they killed off Madison and they brought in Morgan, and the show just got worse and worse and worse from then on. So, like, I'm making light about Morgan, but that's my tie-in of like, and then Morgan came back to The Walking Dead, and he's all like, I'm not killing anybody, and he gets Carol to go off and disappear into her house and not be the bad as that she is for however long, like.
But Carol was already struggling before Morgan.
She was, yeah.
Before Morgan came back, so.
So he's a catalyst for character destruction.
Show destruction.
So then the entire apocalypse happened because Morgan was around.
He is the one who helped save Rick in the very first season. So like, if we're talking about how Rick isn't really a hero, he's actually a villain then it's all Morgan's fault from the very beginning, you guys.
All right, new poll. Who's done more damage to society, zombies, Rick, or Morgan?
I don't think it's Rick, honestly.
Still with Rick.
But if you want to take it back to the very beginning, and Rick wouldn't exist if Morgan hadn't saved him.
But also, Rick would not be the person he is without Shane.
Yeah.
So,
funny enough, I was watching a movie that had John Bernthal in it. Fury. It's a World War II movie, and he plays a jerk in that movie too. And I was watching it with one of my friends who was like, he's always such a jerk. My friend would not shut up about it. It was actually really funny. And I was like, why do you dislike him so much? Like he's I'm sure he's a perfectly nice person and everything. And he was like, it all goes back to Shane. I can never look at this actor without seeing Shane. And I was like, wow, okay, well, that was like 10 years ago, my dear, 14 years ago, my dude. You need to get over that.
but that means he did a great job.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to be the oddball. I'm going to say I actually like Shane. Shane is Carol with one extra flaw. Shane is Carol who wants his best friend's wife. You think about other than that part of his personality, he was another one. Remember the kneecapping? Carl needed the drugs. And being the guy of girth, so we don't say anything. Myself, I freely admit that if somebody who can run faster, yeah, I need to be the bait. It's like the old joke about the two people in the woods. Bear's coming, guy gets out of his sneakers. You think you can outrun a bear? Nope, outrun you.
So with Shane, you look at the characters, unlike Carol, who had damage. I think Shane was the one character of the show that responded completely negatively.
Yeah.
So his stressors made him into more of the villain character much quicker. So where everyone else was doing their adjustment period, his character didn't adjust. His adaptation was violence. He just switched over to pain and suffering versus trying to work stuff out. Where Rick at that time was supposed to be the calming guy coming in before he becomes a really bad leader because everybody killed all the time. But that's just me. But But Shane, I saw was they were actually trying to do. They needed somebody who broke like right away, and I think they're trying to do that with Shane, showing how a lot of people were responding differently. Anyone to sleep with this?
I do think he cared about Carl separately.
He did, and they hooked up when they thought he was dead. So he comes back and ruins the party. But
I get being upset about that. I really do. I just maybe don't react the way Shane reacted.
Yeah, that's true.
But I also think it wasn't just about Lori and Carl. The reason why Shane kind of took the turn he took. Rick comes in, and because he did what he did in Atlanta and helped the group get back to them, it's like almost immediately the group started looking to Rick for leadership when Shane has been there the whole time. So I think it was a combination of all of that. Like Shane is like, okay, so I'm the one that's been here even with Lori and Carl. I'm the one who got you out of Atlanta. I'm the one who's kept you guys safe. I'm the one who's kept this group safe. And all of a sudden, as he says, Officer Friendly comes in, and now all of a sudden you guys are following behind him. I mean, it's understandable what he kind of goes through.
It's your classic beta dog syndrome. He everything's great. He's basking in all the glory, and here comes the hero. And
see again, Rick. Rick's the problem.
You see?
Rick is
know,
the reason Shane is away.
Rick's the reason, the government didn't stand up, the crops all wilted.
I do have a question since we're talking a little bit about season one, but I'm going to move this into the more recent shows as well. So in season one, remember how the walkers, they were like using rocks to break glass, they were climbing fences, and then of course the from season 2 on in The Walking Dead up until I think the very last season, they were just the shambling, walkers that they certainly did not use tools or climb fences or whatever. But then in the last season of The Walking Dead, when the Ren Fair, when they were at the Georgia Ren Fair.
The variants.
Yeah, they all of a sudden there's walkers now who are doing those things again. And of course we've got Daryl in France, which I think did they show, I can't remember, did they show some of that in France too? The walkers that do things?
I want to say I do remember, because I'm trying to remember which storyline it was that there was discussion of the walkers learning. Is there an evolution thing going?
And I guess like that, my question is like, why? It's been so long that I could understand the idea of them learning if it had happened like over a year or something at the beginning, but like now these walkers are because they're all like fresher looking too. So is it something about the post-apocalypse, or is it the experiments the Commonwealth? The one that Jada's,
CRM.
Too many C's.
Yeah.
Pick a different letter, guys. The experiments they were doing, did they do some experiments and like let some walkers out, and then those walkers turned people, and so it has something to do with that? Like, where is my explanation for this?
So I kind of look at it as it's probably just a random thing with the walkers, just like with people. You have different, like all of us are humans, but some of us have certain abilities that others don't.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at it that way because if you think about it, even in between there, in Alexandria, the day that Deanna died, she died in an upstairs bedroom. The walkers had to have climbed the stairs to get to her. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's necessarily that they're just not able to do the things. I just think that it wasn't a focus for the showrunners at the time because we had all these other stories. But now if you're coming back to the different walkers and the way that they behave, we had it in the last couple of seasons of the main show. You have a little bit of it in Fear the Walking Dead. You have the walkers that are being experimented on in Daryl Dixon. I think for whatever reason, they're starting to focus on the walkers again. And maybe that circle is about to close and they're going to show us what it is they're trying to tell us.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was just like, that's one of the things that bothered me when they were promoting the last couple of seasons. They kept talking about the variant walkers. They're like, oh, these walkers can climb, these walkers can do. And I was like, do they not remember Jenny walking up the stairs trying to open up the door?
Yeah, exactly.
In like the very first season. So it always confused me when they talked about the variants and how these are new. And I'm like, they're not new. Go back and look at your own canon, right?
What I always try to keep in mind is like, this was originally just supposed to be a miniseries on the AMC, and how much it's grown and they've had to build since then. So, but yeah, the Walker thing always kind of throws me because even other genre horror movie types that have a lot of zombies and stuff in there, they're usually pretty clear and concise.
Yes.
Because are they shambler zombies? Are they rage zombies, fast zombies, smart zombies? They usually kind of set that rule somehow up front, and they never really did it in The Walking Dead.
No.
Just like they never used the term zombie, and that was intentional because they had never existed. Otherwise, Apocalypse takes a whole different tent.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody here knows, how do you kill a zombie? You stab him in the head, right? Even if it's your best friend from next door. The apocalypse for zombies. We've all got this covered. We'll be able to knock this out pretty quick, right? So everybody with a baseball bat and a shovel, you've taken care of your neighborhood. It doesn't spread. But I don't know if they really planned that far ahead because the miniseries was just supposed to be that. But yes, other people cover that really clearly in their, what type of zombie is, what's the rules, how did they set it up? That was never done.
And then also the post-credit scene for the world beyond when it ended. The whole thing with the scientists in France getting killed, reanimating. You cannot tell me that scientist, that Walker scientist did not realize what had happened to her, because the whole way that she behaved, she wakes up, she reanimates, she looks around, and she starts panicking and runs to the door and is trying to get out. This is someone who is still conscious in that brain. You can't tell me otherwise. So it's got to play into the future of this world somehow, because other than that, why put that there?
Right, and I guess that's, I just feel like you said, how they were pushing how the variants were going to be existing in the later season, last season, later seasons, whatever. I just feel like now the Walking Dead, the main show, has been over since, what was it,
22?
But of course, like
22.
we know that there was a pretty big break because of COVID and everything. So like, the Walking Dead's been over for a couple of years. We've already got Dead City. I hate that name. So like, really, guys, you could not come up with anything. But we've already got Dead City, the Rick and Michonne show, the first season of
The
Daryl
Rick and
Dixon,
Michonne show.
the Michonne show.
Yes,
if
there
wanna
you go.
use the shit name. I don't even remember the name off the top of my head of the Rick and Michonne show now, because that's
The Ones Who Live.
The Ones Who Live. Thank you. I just call it the Rick and Michonne show. But so we've gotten all these new seasons, and we still, even in those ones, it's been few and far between about the variance thing or any sort of information. And it's like, I don't know, I go back to, I just feel like there's someone in an office throwing those little sticky hands at the wall, and it's like, ooh, that one's stuck. What does it say on it? Oh, variants this season. Oh, that one's stuck. What does it say on it? Oh, we're doing away with variants for a while. We got to focus on zombies whose blood is acidic or whatever it is in the Daryl Dixon show,
No, they're just setting up the next expanded universe, The Walking Dead Evolution.
in which
And
Rick comes in and
the
murders
Umbrella
all of
Corps
the evolving
shows up.
zombies.
I think it's a good time to bring the audiences a little bit. Anybody have what's your one character, not from the core group, but any ones we've brushed on over the years, over the series, that you think you'd like to see be the focus of a mini series going 3 and 4 seasons?
Yeah.
Anybody?
The Walking Dead will never die.
I want to say more of what brought the kingdom together, as far as all it, because whenever they introduced him, they already were the kingdom. They already had a kingdom and all that, but they never really brought up who they became, how they became what they were, how he became the leader of them.
I would watch the crap out of a show that has Ezekiel in a zoo, and also anything with Jerry. I want to see their bro ship so much. I love Jerry. That was one of those, if this character dies, I will never watch any of these shows again.
Those last few episodes, I was like, if y'all kill him, we are going to have a problem.
Well, in Ezekiel and the King, such a beautiful character.
Yeah.
The build up in there in the kingdom, you're right, the backstory there, completely missing. We got the governor's backstory throughout the season, so they fed that in there. Ezekiel's not really, but as far as a ridiculous apocalypse character, with the tiger and all that, but so well done.
Yeah.
So much depth. Absolutely. That's a
Also,
beautiful character that
coming back to the hero conversation, I think have we ever Ezekiel's probably one of the purest souls on that entire show. I don't think he's not done. I'm sure he's done some things that in real life, like pre-apocalypse, would make a person really bad. But when it comes down to it, I would actually say Ezekiel's possibly one of, if not the purest.
Well, and he built a very
he had
strong.
a tiger
Yeah.
follow
But
him.
what was the name?
He brought
of
a
the,
strong, honest community together too.
No.
So-
What was you mentioned it? The show where they had Alpha's backstory as one of the episodes.
Oh, Tales of the Walking
Yes,
Dead.
thank you. That if they're not going to do a whole series on it, I love the idea of at least an episode of show me Ezekiel in his zoo, okay?
Mhm.
Show me Ezekiel and Jerry having their meet cute.
Yeah. Show me the rescue of Shiva.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that whole the establishment of that relationship.
And there was just enough there from the books to actually base it on. You can expand from there easily.
She has to, if we think Negan should die.
Oh, okay.
It's a hot debate for us.
Yeah. So-
Negan should have died.
We're coming to the family.
But what do you think?
So I'm gonna
All right,
I'm gonna
you're all
put
on
it
the
out.
jury now.
I'm gonna put it out there. So I also attend Atlanta Comic Convention, and for the last 2 years, we have done a panel about Negan's redemption arc. I am one of those people who firmly believes that he has earned his redemption. Again, as we were talking earlier about heroes and villains, there are some things that we have to, in a zombie apocalypse, there are things that we're going to have to do in order to survive. Now, did he overstep on some of those things? Yes, he did. But there are some
Just a
other
little.
things that, the debates in the fandom where if you really pay attention to the story and the dialogue and to just what his character is, there's room for debate about whether or not he is actually a bad character. I think for anyone to go through what he went through and not go to the evil side for even just a little bit, that would be hard pressed. I mean, this is a man who was not an evil person before the apocalypse. He wasn't the best person, but I mean, we all know people who are like full of ego, cheat on their wives, and just do like just regular horrible things. He's a horrible person in that sense. That doesn't make him an evil monster. The things that happened to him afterwards when he figured out, okay, I need to learn to protect some of these people, like with Laura and her father who helped him and everything that happened to her. He went into those modes to start protecting himself and to protect other people because of what he lost. Now, the thing with Glenn and the thing with Abraham, yes, he went a little far with that, especially because he was not remorseful about it. But we have to remember they went in and killed almost 100 of his people unprovoked, and these people were sleeping and not able to defend themselves.
Because Rick's the bad guy.
I was waiting for that.
So I mean, and I wouldn't even say that he's a bad guy because again, we're gonna go. I also have a what if Maggie Reed is the next TWD villain. We've done that panel as well because that whole thing with the saviors and we'll go kill them and then you give us what you were giving them. That was all Maggie's idea. So Maggie, in a sense, started all of that with that whole group. And I will defend that until the end of days. So I'm one of those people, I really do think that he has earned his redemption arc. And one of the things that really bothers me about the way Dead City has played in the first 6 episodes that we've seen is that you have Maggie at the end of the main show telling Negan, okay, I can't forgive you, but I'm not gonna hate you anymore because I don't want my son to see that this has this kind of control over me. And then here it is approximately 7 or 8 years later because Herschel is now a teenager. And that's exactly what you've done. This man has left you alone. He has taken his wife and his child, moved to another community, no contact. But because of everything that's going on, now you have to come back in and you're doing all of this. It's one of the things that grates me about Dead Cities. Like, Maggie, I understand that you're upset, but you are not a saint. You have done things as well. It's time to, if not let it go, just say, okay, this is what it is. I need to move forward because now she's about to have a whole different set of problems with her son because she can't learn to let that anger go. So with Negan, yeah, absolutely. There are some other characters who I've seen on there who I was like, no, I wouldn't give them a second chance. The governor, absolutely not. Because he was never remorseful about the stuff that he did and the people that he hurt. at least with Negan, yes, he puts on a front in front of all his people because you have to when you're the leader. Because other than that, what's going to happen? People are going to mutiny, and then he's going to find himself in the same position that the last leader that he, ousted was in. So yeah, I will defend Negan's redemption all day long.
So what I find real, you're right. He knew when to turn it off.
Mhm.
He knew when it was done. So it's really fun. So I think last year we had a panel on here called "Politics During the Apocalypse." So Negan came up. Brilliant panel, because part of the thing is, and like I said, I'm a retired Army guy, so we know a lot of military history, right? So leaders and leadership traits are different throughout different phases of civilization, right? So like Genghis Khan, who lives throughout history, violent, ruthless, bloodthirsty, killer, but created a civilization, started setting some rules. At each phase in civilization, you got the Visigoths, or even Vikings or things like that. The leadership traits early on in civilization developments are basically ruthless strength, right? You took what you needed to build for your small group, and eventually, when you started getting into agriculture and trade and things like that, different leadership skills developed. Negan was the leader that was needed at the time, and he played the leadership role. Ruthless, bloodthirsty, killer. It's the apocalypse. That's probably a better leader to have on day one, right? So he built a lot quickly, but on day 7,095, those leaders either get bumped off, people get sick of them, or they realize it's time for me to leave and let something mature. So I think Negan got kind of a bad rap for that. I agree. I think it was kind of, he was playing a role.
He also had people under him who were more violent than him.
Oh my God,
Yes.
that one guy.
Because one of the things about Negan that we've talked about, Negan has a code. And also, Negan does not lie. If he's going to do something, he's going to do it. If he tells you this, that's done. If he doesn't say it, it's not done. So even like with the scavengers, he literally told Simon, okay, so since they decided to betray us, go to them, make sure they understand what it is to betray us. Kill one. That was his whole thing. Kill one. Simon was the one who was like, yeah, I'm so tired of listening to this guy. We're going to kill all of them. And it's just like, because he had that whole thing, that whole I am Negan thing, that's where I think a lot of the issue comes from, because you have people who are acting in your name, but who may not necessarily be doing the things that you want to do. Like we find out in Dead City about the kid that the Croat killed. Negan has very clear rules. We don't kill children, and that's another reason why the discussion comes up as far as the whole subject with his wives, because people are saying that it's coercion. And I'm like, I look at it differently. When you're in that type of environment or that type of community, transactional relationships, they are a thing. And Negan has always had a very clear thing. We don't rape women. I don't want to be part of a community that allows it. So it just kind of, it conflicts with what other people say about his character or how other people look at his character. Because if you look at the things that he personally says and the things that he personally does, and then you look at some of the other stuff that's happened, you'll realize that a lot of the stuff that's happened that's attributed to him were actually done by other people following him. The whole problem, again, is the whole I am Negan thing. If this is how you want to rule your community, that everyone is a part of you, okay, then you have to take the good with the bad.
So I think to answer the family's question, bat wins over cowboy hat.
I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in your debate. From the point of view of the people who won, so of the point of view of the Alexandria Hilltop communities, at the time, yes, absolutely should have executed. Looking at it from their point of view, they're the victors, and we all know, the victor writes the history. So looking from their point of view, absolutely Rick should have taken him out. But the fact that he did not, like we all said, has shown, he gives opportunity, he has in fact earned the redemption. He has done what he needed to do. And very much like the reason I love Carol as my favorite hero, Negan gets things done. May not like the way he does it, but as we all said, you almost have to look at the post-apocalyptic world as the old feudal societies of the Middle Ages. King Richard didn't care what the Normans needed. King Richard didn't care what the Vikings needed. If it benefited his kingdom to take out a Viking encampment, so be it. Your stuff is my stuff. And the Vikings the same way. A Viking raiding was nothing more than, I need this, I need it more than you, and well, I guess I'm stronger. And that's all Negan did. Negan took care of Negan's people. Back you weren't one of his people? Well, things happen.
Rich people all die.
I mean, I will say like one short thing, and that is that I agree, Negan. I disagree with you on the wives thing, but the fact that Negan has a code is, I think, very imperative to whether or not he deserved that redemption arc. Now that said, he for sure, in my opinion, deserved that redemption arc more than Gregory ever deserved anything. Like if we're talking about really crappy leaders, honestly, Gregory was in so many ways worse than Negan. And good riddance.
Gregory caused as many problems as did Rick and then Negan. Yeah, let's go back further. See, Gregory caused it, when you really think about it. Because Gregory is the one that asked. He's the one that made the kill.
I still don't like Rick.
All right, any other question? Oh, we got right back here.
All right, so I am a Madison follower. I love Madison. I want to know.
Oh, I like Madison a lot. My only issue with her is the way she was brought back at the end of Fear the Walking Dead. I thought the whole thing, like, I just wish they hadn't killed her off in the first place, or that they had brought her back sooner, and maybe in a slightly different way. But no, I really, like I said earlier, like I didn't love the first season of Fear the Walking Dead, but seasons 2 and like I said, I can't remember if it was all of 3 or most of it, were really good, and it was like almost entirely due to Madison.
So I am not a Madison fan. Madison's character is actually one of the reasons why I stopped watching Fear the Walking Dead in season 3. I only came back once Morgan crossed over and John Dory entered the picture.
Oh, John Dory.
I was like, okay, I need to see what's going on. I have a very big problem with the way that they brought Madison back for the final season. Part of the problem is the fact that the people who had been there, that the stories that we have been following, just got pushed to the side and disappeared. Justice for Sarah and Wendell, like you pushed those characters aside for the mess that you brought with, Madison. The whole thing about them bringing her back as a child kidnapper, if they had done anything else to bring her back, I could have been okay with it. But the fact that they brought her back as a person who snatched children from other parents, this is a woman who, whatever I felt about her in the early seasons, this was a woman who was about protecting her family and her children. And for them to bring her back in that way, I felt was so disrespectful to the character. And it just made everything that came afterwards for me just, I could not stand it. I watched the rest of that show.
Not to mention the end where they like wrap up her story with just
with the kid that tried to kill her.
They put it in a Tiffany's box, you know, like with the bow and everything, and like Alicia is still alive. Madison, what is happening here? Stop.
Yeah, if they could have brought her back in a different way that made sense, it would have been okay. But then you make the whole final season about these kidnapped children, and then all of a sudden now she has a conscience and she's trying to reunite these kids, and she's doing it for Alicia. But I can't say what I want to say because it's too early in the day. But yeah, I was not a fan.
Because what's funny when you think about that. So remember how they kind of end all these things. There's all these uncompleted conspiracies, right? It always seems like it's kind of coming to the end where it's like kidnapping, it's a bio thing or it's a government thing, but they wrap everything up and they say it's part of this conspiracy, but they never settle what any of these conspiracies are really about. So you're right, they put the gifts, but they never explain, well, who the hell's buying all these gifts and bringing them to all these people? And they're alluding to all these, and we're getting this more in the European thread and some with the CRM, but I think the CRM is less conspiracy, more just big government trying to go inside there. But there's a whole lot of seeded conspiracies. The CDC Atlanta stuff from the very beginning, even none of that is ever wrapped up. So and that doesn't mean I don't love shows. I love all the shows, but
it just
they're
means
not
that we're going to
closing.
get Walking Dead content for the next 50 years.
They're
Right,
closing
exactly.
character arcs. They're doing a good job about kind of wrapping those up, but
Not entirely.
how
Because
many times did Morgan
and I
come
think
back? So,
but no, I mean,
no more Morgan.
but I mean,
Morgan's twin brother.
Okay, since you mentioned twins, we have a whole other twin on Fear the Walking Dead that was part of this storyline, and he was one of those people that just all of a sudden disappeared. Like you don't even like, and you address that in a throwaway line from Victor about, oh yeah, I went to go try to talk to them, and when I went, all of them were dead. Excuse me? You've had us follow these people for 2-3 seasons, and you're just going to throw them away with one line? I had a problem with that, and it was all, I think because they wanted to bring Madison back, and they wanted to focus on that, kind of bookend the series. We started with Madison and her family. We end with Madison and her family, and everybody else be whatever.
Coming up this fall on the next expansion. We are coming to an end here. We have time for, I saw 2 more hands up. We'll hit the last 2 questions.
I know it still bugs me.
Yep.
I read the same. It was actually Kirkland, and I remember the same article. Yeah. Yours?
Oh, yeah, whole thing with the news feed, but nobody on the internet delved into the effects of the fallout. Like, it wasn't covered with the CRM, it wasn't covered by the Daryl. You would have figured Daryl's like, well, yeah, fallout everywhere.
Well, I think because they were so far apart, because the nuclear missiles were in Texas and Alexandria is in Virginia, the Commonwealth is up in Ohio, and the CRM is over on the upper East Coast. So I think it was far enough away that it didn't have an impact on them. But if you look on the ones who live, and in the opening credits where they kind of show you the map of where the CRM is in the country, you will see there in Texas, they do have a radioactive signal. So the CRM is aware of it. But I guess they're like, okay, well, those people are probably dead or they're dying anyway. We're just going to leave that alone.
Yeah.
So it probably just wasn't important enough for them because they didn't realize that these people had figured out a way to live amongst radiation. So
that would make the story very complicated for the characters too, because then the challenge isn't the environment that you're in with the apocalypse and the zombies and warlords and all that. Really, everyone trying not to die of radiation poisoning becomes the overarching issue that would so constrain the story. I mean, it's not even that town over there, we're at war with that town. No, you're not. You're trying not to die of radiation poisoning. You're trying to get clean water. You go back to basic survival requirement versus really interaction, storytelling, things like that. So it would make it real hard.
Yeah, I mean, and they touched on that in Fear, like for half a season or so. But and you're right. Like, I'm glad they did not drag it out any longer than they did with the people like just trying not to get radiation poisoning, because it made it smaller. Like, I don't want to see everybody in masks for 6 episodes straight, But if they're not wearing them, they're gonna get real sick real fast.
All right, well, that brings us to the end. I want to thank our audience, thank our panelists, give you each a moment just to talk about your social medias, upcoming panels, upcoming events.
All right,
what do you want?
Yeah, I said earlier, you can find me online at A Geek Saga. This weekend I am on a crap ton of panels with the high fantasy track, mostly Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. So, but also if anybody in here is a fan of the Red Rising saga, the first ever Red Rising saga panel is happening on Monday at 1 p.m. It's in the Hyatt LAB or something, or NCAB, whatever. It's in the Hyatt basement. So if you have not ever read the Red Rising Saga books, definitely listen or read them.
So I am also on a ton of panels this weekend, mostly with the American Sci-Fi Fantasy track. I do have a listing of my panels if you are interested. I'll be talking about everything from Marvel to Outlander to Game of Thrones. Yeah, so also I have a QR code here where you can find my social media information and a link to our podcast.
Right, so I'm also on various tracks inside of there. Some of the exciting stuff we got Helldivers, older protagonists, and urban fantasy coming up. So I'm on a lot of urban fantasies. Really cool one tomorrow night. Everyone come back here at 10 o'clock for the Zombies versus Aliens game. It's a spectacular panel. It is a ton of fun. All audience participation. Military veterans write fantasy. I'm in those. So when I'm not here, I'm in the dealer's hall booth 2125. I'll also be at the Fantasy Gather tonight. Which if you've never been to, if you like books, is, I don't know, 50 to 100 authors inside of there. You get to do meet and greets. We'll all have our books there. We can sell you books, sign books, everything out there. The Fantasy Gather is a great event. All the panels are many of the Apocalypse ones. And like I said, the one tomorrow night at 10 is everybody's showing. Awesome.
And I'll be on several panels this week and also here at the Apocalypse Rising track. The one I really want to push is tomorrow at 5:30. The Last of Us versus The Walking Dead. Who did it better? And that will be right in this room, actually, tomorrow at 5:30. Also, remind everybody about the Zombie Prom tonight at 10 o'clock over in the Hilton. And I want to thank you all for joining us. I wish you a wonderful Dragon Con.
Thank you. Ooh, Last of Us.